Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Today we are discussing Shakespeare sonnets, not marble nor the gilded monuments, and let me not to the marriage of true minds. First, I'm going to introducing a brief introduction about the author William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was born in Stratford upon Avon, a country market town about 75 miles northwest of London in 1564. He was born in 1564. His birthday is celebrated on April 23. Although no records exist to prove this is his date of birth, his father was John Shakespeare. His mother was Mary Arden. His father, John Shakespeare, was a glove maker, grain merchant, and local political leader. His mother, Mary Arden, was the daughter of a wealthy landowner. In 1582, at the age of 18, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. She was 8 years older than William Shakespeare. They had three children. By 1592, William Shakespeare had moved to London and was working as an actor. 2 years later, Shakespeare joined an acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, for whom he eventually wrote most of his plays. Shakespeare, along with a group of players that acted in his plays, created his own theatre on the River Thames in 1599 and named it the Globe Theatre. He and his friends, he is one of the shareholders of the founder of Globe Theatre. Shakespeare continued to work with his company of men at the Globe Theatre until around 1610. The year that he retired from working on the stage, he was known colloquially as the Bard of Avon. He was known colloquially as the Bard of Avon. William Shakespeare wrote 37 plays that scholars know of, with most of them labeled as comedies, histories, or tragedies. And he has written 157, 154 sonnets also. Sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. He has written 154 sonnets. His early works were, for the most part, based on English history. His works are often divided into four periods, beginning with what is referred to as an experimental period starting around 1591 and ending around 1593, which includes Titus Andronicus, Love's Labour's Lost, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, The Comedy of Errors, and The Taming of the Shrew. The second period, ending around 1601, marks the establishment of Shakespeare and includes the tragedy Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Othello, Julius Caesar, etc. Some of the important works of William Shakespeare: The Merchant of Venice, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and the historical plays Henry IV Parts 1 and 2, Henry V, Richard II, King John, and Julius Caesar in the second period. In the third period, ending around 1610, marks perhaps the effects of Shakespeare's work with the tragedies Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, King Lear. These are all important tragic plays of William Shakespeare, but also comedies such as Twelfth Night, All's Well That Ends Well, and the epic history play Antony and Cleopatra. Antony and Cleopatra. The final period, that means fourth period, ends around 1611 with the plays Cymbeline, Henry VIII, and romances such as The Tempest and The Winter's Tale. So when we look at a chronology of Shakespeare plays, it is clear that Shakespeare changed the subject of his plays as he grew in prominence and then returned to a more serene life, moving from historical subjects to a more playful side and then finally into plays where plots would result in a sense of forgiveness and serenity. Shakespeare's evolution as both a man and a writer is evident. There are two volumes of poetry and 154 sonnets that are attributed to Shakespeare. It is thought that although Shakespeare was a poet throughout his lifetime, he returned to poetry most notably during 1593 and 1594. So that time when a plague was forced theaters in London to shut down. Because of plague, the theaters were shut down. So Shakespeare, on that time, Shakespeare uh, faced so many financial difficulties at that time when plague was attacked to London. So on that time, the theater activities were stopped. So meanwhile, he has started writing sonnets and poetries at that time. The volumes of narrative poems that Shakespeare released during those years were called Venus and Adonis and the Rape of the Lucrece. Shakespeare also wrote Lover's Complaint, which was included in the first edition of Shakespeare's sonnets, which were released in 1609. The Phoenix and the Turtle, another narrative poem, was printed in 1601. So in 1610, Shakespeare left London to retire to his large home in Stratford, but he was an active dramatist and writer up until 1633, when the last of his great works was finished. He lived his final years as a wealthy man and town leader, dying on April 23rd, 1616, at the age of 52. He was died at the age of 52 on April 23rd, 1616. Shakespeare's influence on art, literature, language, and the vast array of the creative arts has long been known and documented, is the most read playwright in the Western Hemisphere, and the English language is littered with quotes and phrases that originated from his works. He is also the inventor of the iambic pentameter, a form of poetry that is still widely used today. Aside from praises, the dramatists introduced close to 2000 original words to the English language. He introduced 2000 original words to the English language, which during the 16th and 17th centuries was not standardized. In fact, words such as lonely, frugal, dwindle, and more originate from Shakespeare, who transformed English into the populist language that is it is today. It is today. So it is about the brief introduction of William Shakespeare. Now we are discussing his poem Sonnet. Let me not to the marriage of Ruma. It is not marble, nor the gilded monument. I read the poem first. Not marble, nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but it shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. So when wasteful war shall status overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory against death and all oblivious enmity. Shall you face forth, your prize shall still find room, even in the eyes of all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. So, till the judgment that your self rise, you live in this dwell in lower size. Not marble, nor gilded monuments means statues made of marble or brass coated with gold. So, not marble, not gilded ornament means statues made of marble or brass coated with gold. That means so. This is the 15th sonnet of Williams. 55th sonnet of William Shakespeare. In the series addressed to the friend, its theme is the power and glory of verse. Shakespeare, of course, speaks of his love and affection for the friend, but it is poetry that immortalizes his love. So, in the first four lines, not marble, not the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but he shall shine more bright in these contents than a unswept stone besmeared with Scottish time. So, in this first four lines, princes want to perpetuate their memory. Princes want to perpetuate their memory. They want to be remembered after their death. Princes wanted to be remembered after their death. So they put up monuments. The monuments are made of marble, stone, or metal like brass, but they do not last long, for time destroys them. At any rate, neither marble nor monument shall outlive verse. Shakespeare assures his friend that he will shine more bright in verse than in unswept stone. Dirty with decay. Here, the poet incidentally digs at the absence of civic duty to keep the tombs and monuments. Next lines 5 to 8. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars is sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. So, in these lines, the poet speaks of other destructive agents like war and fire. War is wasteful, uselessness. It throws down statues and buildings. War is wasteful and uselessness. It throws down statues and buildings. Fights between rival groups also cause damage. The fight between rival groups, also enemies groups also cause damages. A fire may disfigure public memorials. The memory of princes may thus be totally rooted out. But poetry is long lasting. It's a living record. It defies time. The poet assures his friend that neither fire nor brine shall ever destroy the living record of this memory, living record of his memory. In line 9 to 12, in line 9 to 12, against death and all obvious enmity, shall you face forth your prize shall still find room, even in the eyes of posterity, that where is this word would out of the ending doom. So death is the end of everything. We are all know that death is the end of people. So death is the end of everything. It throws things into the kingdom of oblivion. There are also other forces which partially conceal one's fame. Nothing is contrast, change is incessant, but his friend will face forth majestically against all odds. He will move forward, surviving death and oblivion. Posterity will not forget him. He will live on the verse. We will live on the verse. In the last two lines, so till the judgment that yourself rise, you live in this and dwell in lower size. Dwell in lower size. Last lines couplet, two lines called couplet, repeats what is offered in the three quatrains. Shakespeare promises his friend that his praise will remain firm till the day of doom. Till the day of judgment, his friend will live on the verse and in the eyes of all lovers. The couplet also suggests that the last two lines also suggest that poetry is everlasting and it will stand the test of time. Poetry is everlasting and it will stand the test of time. It is an effective conclusion of the poem. The sonnet deals with the tyranny of time, the cruel and immortalizing power of words. This is the favorite theme of sonnet writers in the age of Shakespeare. Writers in the age of Shakespeare. So it is about the sonnet, uh, not marble nor the gilded monument. Next sonnet, let me not to the marriage of true minds. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. I read the poem. Let me not to the marriage of true minds, admit impediments, love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the start to every wandering bark, whose words unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time spool, though rosy lips and cheeks. Within his bending sickle compass come, love alters not with his brief of hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never read nor no man ever loved. Ever loved. Nor man no one ever loved. The sonnet defines perfect love. It is the 116th sonnet of William Shakespeare. The treatment is until the last couplet impersonal. Let me not to the marriage of true minds is the 16th sonnet in a series addressed to the friend. It tells about flawless love. In sonnet 115, love is represented as a babe. One is not sure how the babe will change as it grows up. So the poet speaks about love rather doubtfully. Now all his doubts are resolved. He believes that true love does not alter and it is constant guide in life. In the first four lines, let me not to the marriage of true minds, admit impediments, love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds. So in these lines, marriage implies union of two minds. Marriage implies union of two minds. It is based on perfect love. It lies far behind any obstacle, physical or material. Nothing should hinder the marriage of true minds. There is a reference to marriage service. It is explained in the glossary. True love between two persons does not alter, does not bend, even though there is a strong temptation for it. Things change in the flux of time, but true love is unchanging and lives beyond the time. In the line 58, oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the start to every wandering bar, whose worth unknown, although his height be taken. So in these lines, William Shakespeare defines love in negative terms. Now it dwells upon its positive virtue. It is constant and remains firm forever. Storms and stresses of life do not shake it. It is unshakable and like the northern star. Life is not unshakable. It is like the northern star, fixed star. So the right direction in life, it is immeasurable. It is priceless. If you do not know the meaning of these two words, in line 9 to 12, love's not time's full, though rosy lips and cheeks, within his bending sickles compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Even to the edge of doom. So the greatness of love is described in the quatrain. Beauty and strength are the blessings of youth. Beauty and strength are the blessings of youth, but time takes them away, while the factors that generate love vanish in course of time. Love itself remains undying. Earlier, time was described as all powerful, and every created thing would come within its compass. Now its importance is seen and as diminished compared to the supremacy of love. Time cannot destroy true love. Love will stay on even to the edge of doom. Onto the edge of doom. So in there are two images in this quatrain. Time with its bending sickle, the edge of doom. An appropriate use of image can enrich the poem. So image one, time with its bending sickle, a representation of a person, animal or object that painted, sculptured, photographed or otherwise made visible. So the image of two is mental impression of visualized likeness, summoned up by a word, phrase or sentences. In the last two lines couplet, if this be error and upon me proved, I never writ nor no man ever lived. So these last two lines, William Shakespeare strikes a personal note. He is confident of his claim that love is permanent feeling and poetry immortalizes it. If these claims are proved against him, it is as good as saying that he has not written any poem and no one has ever loved in this world. So note the challenging tone of the couplet. So two things should be clear to you from above analysis of the sonnet. Shakespeare concept of love and greatness of his poetry. Greatness of his poetry. So Shakespeare, the playwright, has so much overwhelmed the world with his great play that Shakespeare, the poet, relegated to a minor place by many critics. In fact, even when critics praise the poet, they call out examples from his great tragedies or the songs are from comedies to prove his poetic genius. This appears to do scant justice to Shakespeare's powers as a poet, and especially the sonnet form of poems bestowed in his name. So it is the brief introduction of the poem sonnet, Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Next, we are discussing the essay from Francis Bacon of Studies. The essay of Studies written by prose part of Studies written by Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon. Reading Francis Bacon was the first writer to borrow the form essay and adopt it in English. He found the form suitable to receive many thoughts of his own mind. Before proceeding further, let us know more about Bacon. Francis Bacon was lived in between 1561 to 1626, was a famous statesman, essayist, and philosopher. As an intellectual, he is described as one of the most formative minds of European thought during the last 4th century. Bacon is recognized as the father of English essays. He is a great essayist. Francis Bacon was a great essayist. So, Of Studies is the essay written by Francis Bacon. He is concerned with counsels, the task of giving the civic and moral counsels in the essay. It is so with the objective of instructing young people in desirable ideas. Bacon published his first volume in 1597. This happens to be the first book of essay to appear in English. Though not all these essays may carry high morality, but no one can deny Bacon's capacity for aphoristic expressions. It is said that each sentence of Bacon's essay contains matter worth a paragraph of an ordinary writer. Bacon's essays are compact in style. Phrases are well ordered and precise. Sentences are mostly short and crisp and full of wily thoughts. Many of his sentences have become almost part of the English language. For example, some books are to be tasted. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. So men fear death as children fear to go in the dark, and wives are young men mistresses, companions for middle age and the old men nurses. So these utterances are quoted almost like hours by readers of discernible taste. Of Studies is one of Bacon's well-known and much anthologized essay. Let us now read the essay. So reading is an important mental activity. It can also be called a serious learning exercise. As such, it demands focused attention. When reading is taken up as a concentrated manner and as an academic activity, it is termed as study. So thus there are degrees of concentration involved in reading. I already had some practice in reading comprehension. In the preceding two units, in this unit, you are introduced to comprehending a literary piece. It is written in a literary form, popularly known as the essay. The essay taken for all analysis of studies by Francis Bacon, one of the most celebrated essayists of English literature. Before analyzing the essay, I tried to give you the definition and salient features of an essay. We'll also introduce the two broad categories of essay. Thereafter, you find the actual text of the essay of studies followed by an analysis. So, the essay of studies. Studies serve for delight. Studies serves for delight, for ornament, and for ability. The chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring for ornament, is in discourse, and for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. For expert men can execute and perhaps judge of particulars one by one, but the general counsels and the plots and marshalling of affairs come best from those that are learned. To spend too much time in the studies is flawed. To use them too much for ornament is affection. To make judgment only by the rules is the humor of a scholar, a perfect teacher, and are perfected by experience. For natural abilities are like the natural plants that need pruning by study, and studies themselves to give forth directions too much at large, except they be bounded in by experience. Crafty men condemn studies, simple men admire them. Crafty men condemn studies, simple men admire them, and wise men use them. So, for they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom without them, and above them one by observation. Read not to contradict and confute, not to believe and take for granted, not to find talk and discourse, but weigh and consider. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed. This is the important lines of studies. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. So that is, some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously. Some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously, and some few to be read wholly and with diligence and attention. Some books also may be read by deputy and extracts made of them by others, but that would be only in the less important arguments and the meaner sort of books. Else, distilled books are like common distilled waters. Flashy things, reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Please mind it. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Writing an exact man. So, and therefore, if a man write little, he had need have a great memory. If he confer little, he had need have present wit. And if he read little, he had need have much cunning. To seem to know that he doth not. Histories make man wise. Histories make man wise. Poets witty. The mathematics settle natural philosophy, deep moral grave, Rajic and rhetoric able to contend. Ambient studia in most. Studies pass into the character. So there is no stand or impediments in which. but maybe wrought about by the fit studies like as diseases of the body may have to appropriate exercise. Bowling is good for the stone and reins, shooting for the lungs and the breast, gentle walking for the stomach. Bowling is good for the stone and reins, shooting for the lungs and breast, gentle walking for the stomach, riding for the edge, and the like. So if man's wit be wandering, let him study the mathematics for demonstration. If his wit be called away, never so retreat. You must begin again. If his wit be not apt to distinguish or find difference, let him study the schoolmen for their simony sectors. If he be not apt to beat over matters and to call up one thing to prove and illustrate another, let him study the lawyer's cases. So every defect of mind may have a special receipt, may have a special receipt. So after studies, a brief essay, it is full of ideas. In fact, Bacon, as a sharp intellect, shrewd observer, and distinguished philosopher, is known for his inimitable style of backing tight his essays with thoughts. And no doubt, after this is a treasure house of thought, provoking and loaded aphorisms. So you must not note that Bacon straight away plunges into the subject. He does not give any introduction, but assuming a serious tone concerns himself with what to read and how to read. This also explains the title of the essay. Employing pointed and compact statements, the essayist explains three important uses of studies. The first use of studies is delight. The first use of studies is delight. Bacon feels that when you read in seclusion or in our leisure time, reading gives us happiness. So the second use of studies is to ornament, to enrich our speech. And the third use of studies, reading, is to enhance our ability in terms of wisdom. First, please mind it. The first use of studies is delight, and the second is use of studies to ornament, enrich our speech, and the third use of studies, reading, is to enhance our ability in terms of wisdom, information, and skill. It is noteworthy here that Bacon has packed all these ideas in a brief sentence like studies serve for delight, for ornament, and Bacon firmly believes that reading is an inexhaustible source of pleasure. Good reading sensitizes our mind and stimulates our intellect. Good reading sensitizes our mind and stimulates our intellect. Reading also gives an edge of force to planning and decision making. Expert in a particular field might execute plans and judge and handle situations part by part, but managing overall situations with efficiency is carried out by men of profound learning, a keen and perceptive mind. endowed with clarity of ideas, is the legacy of knowledge. Bacon next moves on to the discuss the abuses or disadvantages of studies, and it does so by giving us yet another maxim. To spend too much time in studies is sloth, to use them too much for ornament is affectation. To make judgment only by the rules is the humor of a scholar. Bacon is against using too much time on studies as it may make a person lazy and even drive him away from work. Too much indulgence in reading may tempt us to make a vain inner abilities. Bacon argues that people estimate knowledge or learning according to their own perception. Men of practical wisdom despise studies as they have too much faith in their own ability. Simple men appreciate studies, whereas wise men use the knowledge acquired through studies to their advantage. One can learn to apply one's another knowledge in the real situation through observation and experience. Observation and experience. So Bacon's advises to follow certain rules regarding study. Read not to contradict and confuse, not to believe and take for granted, not to find talk and discourse, but weigh and consider. Weigh and consider. So knowledge acquired through studies is not to be used for arguing or contradicting others or to prove a person wrong. Also, one should not believe completely or take for granted everything that is available in books. Similarly, reading should not be only for finding a topic to talk about or debate an issue. Reading should be done with an open mind and a questioning attitude. In fact, studies should equip a person to weigh and consider, having stated that Bacon comes out with one of his most memorable statements about reading. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Not every book, in Bacon's opinion, deserves a close and attentive study. Some books can be read at the superficial level and only in parts. Some can be read hurriedly without caring for details. But there are some books which demand a careful, minute, and attentive study. So, elaborating on this idea, Bacon further writes some books are to be read only in the parts, others to be read but not curiously, some few to be read wholly and with diligence and attention. So, here Bacon also adds that some books can be read by deputy or assistants, and an abstract or summary of the theme may be prepared. However, Bacon recommends such arrangements of only average books. He considers summaries attractive substitutes but tasteless and devoid of nutrients like distilled waters. So, in the last part of the essay, Bacon explains the advantages of reading. The essayist once again comes out with a loaded observation. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Reading make a full man, conference make a ready man, and writing an exact man. For Bacon, reading equips a person to be well informed and knowledgeable. Conversation or discussion makes one quick witted, and writing or analyst records things deeper in memory. Therefore, a person who does not have the habit of writing needs to have great memory to compensate for it. A man who does not discuss much needs to have presence of mind, and a man who reads but little needs to have the cunning to pretend to be knowledgeable. So Bacon next takes upon himself the duty of handing out prescriptions of various diseases of the mind. He argues that a study of history makes a man wise through his understanding of the past. Study of poetry makes a person witty, whereas mathematics makes one skillful and clever. A natural philosophy, like biology, geology, physics, etc., adds depth to one's learning. Moral philosophy makes one solemn or serious, whereas subjects like logic or rhetoric sharpen argumentative skills. Let me state here that these are Bacon's views. These views may or may not be applicable to modern times. Using the Latin quotation, Abient studia in mores, which means studies pass into the character. Francis Bacon states that character is shaped by studies. Bacon draws a parallel between body and mind. He believes that if there is a hindrance or impediment in one understanding or intellect, it can be removed by right kind of studies. So, in the same way, as diseases of the body can be cured by right kind of exercises. He refers to various exercises which are good for different physical ailments. Here is the necessary to understand two terms, humor and schoolman. As they were understood in Bacon's own time, humor is a term used in medieval medicine. Humors refer to four important fluids of the body which determined a person's physical mental and intellectual qualities. These humors are blood, choler, melancholy, femme. When these humors are balanced, a person is in good physical and mental health. Excess of any of these humors was supposed to alter one's personality. Humor indicated inclination or mood. For example, too much choler made the person irritable. Schoolmen refers to teachers in the medieval European universities. They were masters of theology, so who dealt with the religious doctrines by rules of Aristotelian logic. Bacon considers the game of bowling good for the kidneys. Shooting or archery is good for the considers game of bowling good for the kidneys. Shooting or archery is good for the lungs and the chest, gentle for walking for the stomach, and then riding for the head. So carrying the analogy forward becomes prescribes the study of mathematics. If a person lacks concentration, similarly, if a person is unable to distinguish between things, he should study medieval theologians who debated over minute points applying the rules of Aristotelian logic. Bacon calls these philosophers simine sectors, which means air splitters are literally speaking dividers of cumin seeds. If a person has poor memory and is unable to connect things, he is, in the opinion of Bacon, should study liar's cases. Thus, Bacon finds in studies and answers to every mental impediment. For him, studies not only serve intellectual purpose but also a medicinal value, but also a medicinal. So he becomes famous writer, rest on a surer basis, and he might with more show of reason be styled the father of modern English prose. Bacon believed that the mind of the man and the knowledge mind, a man is but what he knoweth. This explains the importance of knowledge for Bacon. It is believed that next to Shakespeare, Bacon has perhaps the largest range of words of any English writer. His essays are compact in style, almost didactic, and with a pretty balance of the phrasing. Here, uses surprising syntax where brief, rapid sentences come down like the stroke of a great hammer at places. Rough, truly, rarely one may come across loose construction. We are conscious that it is artless art, not careless, or confusion of thought. The most noteworthy attribute of his prose style is terseness. So there is a rarely superfluous epithet in his essays. His language is clear and limpid as the thought. So it is about the essay of studies. In the next class, we are discussing some other chapters. Okay, bye.